James Hillman opens his essay Anima Mundi with these words: "To speak, to ask to have audience today in the world, requires that we speak to the world. The world is in the audience. It too is listening to what we say." So I'm addressing this presentation not only to all of you sitting here in this room, but to the world, which is also present. A few months ago, in a class taught by Joanna Macy and Sean Kelly, Joanna said something that particularly resonated with me. She said, "One cannot perceive relationship with the physical eyes. It can only be perceived by the imagination. Imagination allows us to perceive relationship." This started me thinking about ecology, how we practice ecology and what we define it as. The standard definition of ecology is that it is the branch of biology that studies the relationship between organisms and their environment, including other organisms. If this is the case, if ecology is the study of relationship, then in a way, ecology requires imagination to be able to be practiced. So what I'd like to speak to you about today is an approach to the world that I'm calling an imaginal ecology. I've chosen the term ecology as opposed to environmentalism because the term environment sets the earth in the background. Environment is defined as the surroundings in which a plant or an animal or a person lives or operates. It is the stage on which we dance, but it is not the dancer itself. So the term ecology, by focusing on relationship, returns the earth to the foreground. I use the term imaginal in Henri Corbin's sense, imaginal as opposed to imaginary or imaginative. Corbin chose the term mundus imaginalis, Latin for the world of the imagination, to differentiate what is just made up, what is imaginary, from what he calls, quote, "the object of imaginative or imagining perception," end quote. In Hillman's sense, the imaginal is how one perceives, a seeing with the eye of the soul into the soul of the world. Imagination exists between the physical world and the realm of abstract thought. It is in the middle. It is the realm in which images bloom, more tangible and accessible than the mental, but more fluid, more impermanent than the physical. But imagination, it's not fixed between these two realms, it permeates both of them as well. Gaston Bachelard provides this image for the imagination, showing its mediating quality. He says, quote, "The imagination is a tree. It has the integrative virtues of a tree. It is root and boughs. It lives between earth and sky. It lives in the earth and in the wind. The imagined tree becomes imperceptibly the cosmological tree, the tree which epitomizes the universe, which makes a universe." So if this is the case, then imagination is the unifying principle permeating psyche, permeating earth, permeating the cosmos. I find it interesting that in Western thought, the imagination was not considered to be a solely human faculty, like the rational mind. For example, Aristotle spoke of how animals also had imagination as a power of their perceptive souls. And Rudolf Steiner talks about the imagination and how it's related to the etheric realm, which is also the realm of plants. And then, of course, there's the ancient perception of the anima mundi, the soul of the world, which, as Hillman says, may only be perceived with the eye of the imagination. I see this imaginal ecology being practiced in myriad ways by many different thinkers, and hopefully by the end of this talk you'll be able to add some to those that I name here. I've already mentioned Joanna Macy and James Hillman, but also Thomas Berry, Brian Swim and Mary Evelyn Tucker, Chris Beige and Theodore Rozak, David Abram, even J.R.R. Tolkien in his way, which I'll be getting into later. I see imaginal ecology in the poetry of the Romantics, in the writings of the Transcendentalists and the German idealists. I believe that we cannot think our way out of this ecological crisis. We have to imagine it. Joanna Macy talks about the moral imagination that allows us to situate ourselves in the experiences of other beings, ancestors of our past, plants and animals, entire ecosystems, even beings of the future. It allows us to hear the needs of others and recognize them as our own. Macy says, The imagination needs to be schooled in order to experience our interexistence with all beings in the web of life. Brian Swimme and Thomas Berry and Mary Evelyn Tucker show how the imagination can carry us back to the flaring forth of the universe. As we experience the unfolding of the universe, it makes clear our role as human beings, that we are the universe. As we reorient our relationship to the earth, we recognize that we are the earth in relationship to ourselves. And this very idea is carried into eco-psychology. If we are the cosmos in human form, then the pain of the world is expressing itself through our human pain, through our diseases, and through our pathologies. I see eco-psychology also as a form of imaginal ecology that engages in the healing of the soul of the world, the anima mundi. Shifting the focus of psychology from the isolated psyche of the individual human patient to the psyche of the world, as Hillman says, will fundamentally, quote, affect the ecology movement in such mundane matters as energy policy, nourishment, hospital care, the design of interiors. No longer would these be external, that is, political or professional activities only, but a focus of psychotherapy, because no longer would we be able to divorce the consciousness raising of the patient from the creation itself. He goes on to say, our imaginative recognition, the childlike act of imagining the world, animates the world and returns it to soul. This is what David Abram is doing in his work and his own imaginal engagement with the landscape. At one point in his writings, he's speaking of the air enveloping our planet. He comes to an interesting realization. He says, quote, we, imbibing and strolling through that same air, do not then live on the earth, but in it. We are enfolded within it, permeated, carnally immersed in the depths of this breathing planet. End quote. We are in the earth, as the earth is in the cosmos. Just as imagination is between the physical world and the realm of abstract thought, the earth is between us and the cosmos. Ecology between psychology and cosmology. In this way, then, imaginal ecology is something of a middle path. My own wanderings down this middle path to the earth have often led me just there, Middle Earth, the imaginal realm that Tolkien created in his literary mythology. The creative works of many artists and writers can serve ecology by offering what Tolkien calls a recovery, giving us the opportunity of regaining a clear view of the enchantment that is inherent in the world that we live. Many of Tolkien's critics have dismissed his work as escapist, something that lets us leave the world of everyday realities and difficulties. But I see it slightly differently. I think that the boon of allowing ourselves to truly enter into an imaginal realm, such as the one that Tolkien revealed, is that we're given the opportunity to witness the beauty and enchantment of our own world. We return from the imaginal realm to find that we have actually never left, or rather that we were always there. Tolkien's most well-known work, The Lord of the Rings, is a tale in which it is the good green earth itself that is at stake. It is a tale of hope against all odds, in which the road is dark, the road treads through despair. It's a tale in which it's the diminutive peoples, the forgotten peoples, those who've been backgrounded, like the environment, just the surroundings. They're the ones who stand forward to defend Middle-earth. Even the trees awaken to defend the earth. The Tolkien scholar Tom Shippey points to what a central role Middle-earth plays in all of Tolkien's narratives. He says, it has been rightly said that the true hero of The Lord of the Rings is not Aragorn or Sam Gamgee or even Frodo, but Middle-earth itself. Middle-earth, with its astonishing range of habitats, from the tilth of the Shire to the Rider's Prairie, from the managed woodlands of Lorien to the deep dales of Fangorn, where the Huorns lurk in the hundreds. And the great river, Tom Bombadil's willow-choked Withywindle, the glittering caves of Aglarond, Ithilien with its disheveled dryad of loveliness, Hollin in Wilderland, which still remembers the elves, are all described with careful and loving attention. Tolkien presents us with an enchanted cosmology, where magic isn't flashy spells, but an inherent property of the earth itself. There's a deep magic in that land that shapes its inhabitants far more than they shape it. At one point in the Fellowship of the Ring, Sam Gamgee is in Lothlorien and trying to describe what he perceives of this deep magic and the relationship that he sees between the elves and the land they live on. He says, "Now these folks aren't wanderers or homeless and seem a bit nearer to the likes of us. They seem to belong here, more even than hobbits do in the Shire. Whether they've made the land or the land's made them, it's hard to say if you take my meaning. If there's any magic about it, it's right down deep, where I can't lay my hands on it, in a manner of speaking." But ultimately, The Lord of the Rings is a story of community. It's not a hero's journey. It's a hero's, plural, journey, or journeys, a representation of what Rick calls heroic communities. It's a story of fellowship, friendship, relationship. Because the world can't be saved with a single action. Ultimately, it's not the destruction of the ring that saves Middle-earth. That's one part, an important part, but a part nonetheless that's carried out by more than one individual. The true work is the rebuilding that takes place, the slow work of restoring the landscape by all the communities of Middle-earth. I find it interesting that the penultimate chapter of The Lord of the Rings, which is called The Scouring of the Shire, was left out of the film adaptation. It might be a reflection of our cultural attitude towards these things. But in the second to last chapter, the hobbits return to their homeland to find the Shire destroyed, industrialized while they were away. The fields have been laid to waste. Food has been exported and the inhabitants are starving. Beautiful homes have been destroyed, replaced with hideously efficient brick buildings. Large mills have been erected that pour black smoke into the air and foul sewage into the rivers. Beloved trees are cut, used as firewood, or left to rot. Using the skills from their journeys, the hobbits undertake the slow task of healing the land, of resowing the fields and nourishing the soils, replanting the trees, and tending them with loving care. And what's important is that this is done by the community, not by a single hero acting alone. In a recent conversation with my friend Laura Beige, who, it happens, is born about 8 hours after me, so we have very similar birth charts, and it turns out very similar ways of experiencing the world, she gave me an image for this imaginal work that we do as a community. If one were to witness a woman giving birth without knowing what was going on, one would likely think that she was dying. The pain of the earth we are witnessing may indeed be the pains of such a labor, the pains of the earth birthing herself. Like the caterpillar entering the chrysalis to birth itself as a butterfly, the outcome is always uncertain. When a caterpillar enters its cocoon and begins metamorphosis, its body dissolves entirely. Everything that the caterpillar once was is gone. The transformation is guided by several sets of embryonic cells that provide the only continuity between the caterpillar and what it will be when it emerges from the cocoon. These powerful cells have an apt name: imaginal cells. Within the rich culture dissolved in the chrysalis, the imaginal cells grow to form wings, legs, antennae, a new body entirely. Those of us who hold a vision of what the future of the earth may be are like these imaginal cells, the midwives who aid in the birthing or the rebirthing of the earth. The task of rebirthing the earth is beyond any of us alone, but we can witness, we can aid in the process by holding the vision of what may be to come. Thank you.
What else do you think?
You got one here.
I could have a question if you want.
Yeah.
Sure, and
Aaron's
I can add
pretty good.
something came up with that, but yes, please, Aaron.
I just thought it'd be interesting to observe a connection between Laura's talk and yours. And it's interesting how we were talking about rituals proceeding from beliefs, but it's also true of the neo-pagan community that fiction is an important source for stories and myths of the god and goddess and everything else. And I feel like what you've been doing here really brings that out. And so there's a sense in which the imaginal is ontological, but there's also a sense in which the earth is a fiction. So
And gives rise to fiction, too.
Yeah, and fiction gives rise to it. See, so I find there an interesting interplay between these two presentations. So we've added some more robust elements of fiction to our sense of nature ritual. And now I'm curious about what sort of ritual possibilities or realities you may have encountered along your exploration.
I was actually very grateful that Laura and I were scheduled back to back because we did see connections between our talks. And I can give a few different personal answers to that. It might just be my nature that I see Middle Earth everywhere.
Right.
And when I walk out into Golden Gate Park, a block from my house through the redwoods, that is my imaginal enchanted ritual of when just 2 days ago when I was trying to bring the ideas together for this in the way that I wanted, and walking through the trees and seeing the way that the light filters through the dust that is kicked up from the ground, and the smell of the redwoods and so on. That, for me, is enchantment. Being able to see that. It doesn't need to be something external, and that's why when I talk about the deep magic that Tolkien articulates, it's something that is perceivable with an eye greater than projection in the planet. And for me, that is ritual, and different ways of creating that. I think it depends on the groups and the people and what landscapes speak to you, because of course not every landscape is going to speak to people in the same way, including cities, including parks. I have a real fascination with parks. This place where nature, by the 4 definitions that Laura gave us, and human city creating meet, and what is there. I find them fascinating and kind of have my own imaginal rituals with just walking through parks. Another brief answer I'll give is that of course, The Lord of the Rings is a very popular story. It's sold more copies of any book, second only to the Bible. And for a lot of people, does have that quality of a sacred text. And a lot of people who it's touched will read it again and again every year as part of a kind of ritualized tradition. And I think that also, in a way, is a kind of an imaginal ecological ritual. So, sorry, that was a bit long. But.
I was just wondering if you could talk about magic a little more, like specifically what that is for you, how it comes out and what you do, how it comes out and other things doing their thing.
And other things doing their things. I find the very existence of this planet to be magic. So, again, for me, magic is that deep magic. It's not. I'm not looking for something that is external, that will cause miracles. It's not that the causation of miracles, it's the existence already that is a miracle, I guess. So I see, in a way, a relationship between miracles and magic.
I really loved the reference to the imagined relationship, which Becca and also Park.
Mm.
And as a way of understanding, there's been many thoughts on this, as a way of understanding how we enter into that meeting between spirit and matter. And imagination is a pathway where you can, with my material body and your material body, with this imagination, can perceive a depth of the spirit that's within that. So I love that you brought up that reference and to me brought up these thoughts, and I wondered if you could take that anywhere and have thoughts about seeing relationships.
Yeah, in a way, it's quite literal. If you look at a married couple with your physical eyes, it doesn't necessarily tell you that they're married or what their history has been. But part of you knows, maybe this is the place where imagination and intuition intersect. And I think that's also the permeating quality of imagination, is that it's difficult to separate out from all the other ways that we perceive. It saturates the way our senses and our ways of perception, and in a way that's also what relationship is, because we can't separate out the relationships between us, just as we can't separate out ourselves. They're intertwined and it's saturating. So a relationship is also like the tree that has its roots in one person and it has its branches in the other, and holds them together in that way.